In the past 24 hours, the Washington Commanders have added 2 new players to the edge, but neither of them is going to prevent the Washington Commanders from potentially going after Trey Hendrickson or another edge rusher with a premium pick in this year's NFL draft. That and more on today's episode of Locked On Commanders.
You are Locked On Commanders, your daily podcast on the Washington Commanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome inside today's episode of Locked On Commanders. I'm your host, David Harrison, here with you every Monday through Friday. Also, your friend, your eyes, your ears on the ground, covering the Washington Commanders for Sports Illustrated's CommanderGameDay.com, contributing to WUSA9.com's local coverage of the team as well. I want to thank you for coming through for today's episode. In this episode, we're going to be talking about a plethora of moves that the Washington Commanders agreed to make on Thursday here as we head into the weekend towards the end of the week here on the Locked On Commanders podcast. But we're also going to talk about Will Harris and Marcus Mariota. They met with us today, so I'm going to share some insight and some analysis, I suppose, of what they had to say to the media on Thursday. And we're also going to talk about the Washington Commanders perhaps setting the edge, adding 2 new members to their edge group. However, like I said, I don't believe that they are necessarily done because of those 2 additions. Every dayers, those of you who come through every single day, I already know that you are, but if you are not out there subscribed, please do so for free on YouTube or wherever you are listening to this episode. If you're new to the show, want to thank you for coming through. Thank you for finding Locked On Commanders. This is a daily podcast covering your Washington Commanders, all part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So be sure you come back again soon. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, and right now new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. As we were live on Wednesday night, the Washington Commanders agreed to terms on a deal with defensive end Deatrich Wise, formerly of the New England Patriots. And then on Thursday, before we went live, actually almost shortly before we went live, I was actually getting ready to go live, and then this deal broke, and so I had to shift fire and adjust some things. Defensive end Jacob Martin also agreeing to terms with the Washington Commanders. So who are these 2 fine gentlemen? Deatrich Wise turns 31 in July, so a little bit older of a defensive end, 2017 4th-round pick by the New England Patriots out of Arkansas. He's spent all 8 of his NFL seasons thus far with the New England Patriots. He's got 61 starts in 126 games played. He's going to be joining fellow former Patriot Jonathan Jones, who we expect to hear from sometime this weekend, either Friday or Saturday, Friday counting as the weekend, all that stuff as the Commanders finalize a lot of these deals. 34 career sacks for Deatrich Wise Jr. His highest single season total in his career in sacks was 7.5 sacks that he had in 2022. Played 73% of his defensive snaps that season, or 73% of the team's defensive snaps that season, which is a career high for him. No more than 57% snaps on defense for the season in any other season as a member of the Patriots. Looking at his grades and all that stuff, not a great run defender, but not a terrible run defender. In fact, if you stack his grades up against Clelin Ferrell's from Pro Football Focus, he actually grades out better against the run than Clelin Ferrell. And Clelin Ferrell, that was supposed to be like his main attraction was his run defense. And then any type of pass rush production you got out of him would just be, kind of the cherry on top or gravy or whatever you want to call it. Also grades out, Deatrich Wise does, as a better pass rusher than Clelin Ferrell. And if you go back to early 2024, there was a period of time there where Clelin Ferrell led the team in sacks. And I remember saying back then, that's great for Clelin, not so great for the rest of the defense, right? Is he a starter? Deatrich Wise, yes, for now. On the depth chart, yeah, without Clelin Ferrell on the roster, which again, I've said, I don't expect Clelin Ferrell to be back. Deatrich Wise right now, like if the team were to line up and play 11 on 11 right now, I think Deatrich Wise would be lined up as the defensive end opposite of Dorrance Armstrong Jr. So that being said, defensive end Jacob Martin was also added, or agreed to be added, I should say, Thursday evening. He turns 30 in December, so just recently turned 30 or turned 29. So he turns 30 in December, 6th-round pick by the Seattle Seahawks in the 2018 NFL draft out of Temple. And I got to be honest with you, I've got a little bit of a affinity for Temple guys. Like Temple guys just tend to be tougher type of dudes. So we'll see if that fits here with Jacob Martin. Spent 1 year with the Seahawks after he was drafted in 2018. Then he went on to spend 3 years with the Houston Texans. Part of 2022 with the Broncos and the Jets, each split their time there. 2023, he was with the Colts. 2024, he was with the Bears. Now 2025, he will be with the Washington Commanders. He's got 15 career starts since 2018, 21 career sacks. Most of his sacks, or the season high of his sacks, I should say, or career high for a season in sacks, came in 2021 when he had 4, had 3 with the Chicago Bears last season. Played 61% of the defensive snaps for the Texans in 2021. That is his career high for a single season. Played 32% of the defensive snaps for the Chicago Bears last year. This is a guy who can stand up on the edge, so he can be an outside linebacker type, or he can play DN. He can put his hand in the dirt. He's done a little bit of both. Grades out as a pretty good pass rusher, not a great run defender. Tackling is kind of lacking. Sounds a lot like Dante Fowler Jr., to be quite honest with you. Is he a starter? No, he's a situational pass rusher. Like I said, could be a Dante Fowler replacement. Never say never, but we talked earlier in the week about some of the comments that Dante Fowler Jr. made on X, one of which he deleted, the other he did not. Both of them combined individually kind of lead towards maybe he's not necessarily feeling the love that he wants to feel in Washington from multiple levels. To be quite honest with you, I think some of that is including us, the media here. I don't think the fans are getting any of that, but media, team, stuff like that. But here's the rub. None of this takes the Washington Commanders out of contention for Trey Hendrickson, right? Like, I think bottom line, it also doesn't take them out of contention to go spend a premium pick in the NFL draft. And when you listen to the bio of these guys, right, like Deatrich Wise, again, he's going to be 31 by the time training camp rolls around. Jacob Martin's turning 30 this year. Jacob Martin's a career backup role player. He's going to continue to be that. Deatrich Wise has, he's gotten more starts, certainly, and he's played, higher percentage of snaps than Jacob Martin has, but he's not an established starter, wasn't an established starter in New England for his entire career and things like that. So none of this precludes, right? Because I know that conversation's been had. Actually, I don't remember the name of the other media outlet. I know it was probably ESPN or something like that, but one of their analysts said, well, after trading for Laramie Tunsil, the Washington Commanders are out of the Trey Hendrickson race because they just gave up all this draft capital. Well, I'd remind that person that the draft capital they gave up, the most significant draft capital they gave up is next year, second rounder, fourth rounder in 2026. They kept their first round, they kept their second rounder here in 2025. So certainly the potential to, a first rounder from Washington and the Bengals give back a second or give back a third, or the Commanders give up number 61 in the second round and a package of late picks, their other 7th round pick and maybe a 2026 fifth or something like that to go get Trey Hendrickson. The thing about Trey Hendrickson, though, this coming from Diana Rossini of The Athletic on Thursday, says, quote, teams are willing to pay Trey Hendrickson the contract that he desires, but have found Cincinnati's current asking price to be, quote unquote, ridiculous, as one GM told me. The Bengals can adjust as the offseason progresses, but right now, teams aren't willing to meet their terms, end quote. So, there hasn't been a firm rumor on what the Bengals want. There's been a firm speculation about what it would take, which was a second round pick and some change, or a first round pick straight up. But basically, to me, honestly, it's starting to sound like the Bengals are basically operating in bad faith here. They tell Trey Hendrickson, hey, look, dude, you want X amount of money. We're not going to give it to you. So we're going to give you permission to go out there and find a trade partner for you who's willing to pay you what you want, and then we'll deal with them on the trade side. And Trey goes out there, and it turns out that Trey Hendrickson was right. Like Diana Rossini is saying here, there are teams willing to pay the salary that he's asking for, and the reported salary that he's asking for is well over $30 million. I think we sat at a number. I think we sat at like $34.5 million per year. I think is where we calculated it might be, right? Not firm. And I don't know for a fact that one of the teams willing to pay Trey Hendrickson is Washington, right? But we do know that Washington was in those conversations. We do know that obviously Washington still needs to set their edge. And so it just would make sense that Adam Peters is one of those GMs potentially willing to pay that price. You know what I mean? And so if you're Trey Hendrickson and you're the rest of the NFL, you're saying, hey, dude, Bengals, you told this dude to go see if he's worth what he thinks he's worth. We're telling you he's worth it. We're willing to pay him that money. You're not willing to pay him that money, but now you're throwing up roadblocks by asking for this ridiculous package of picks that you're not going to get. So, again, just looks like the Bengals are basically operating in bad faith, and it seems to kind of be their MO, right? They're just not very good at this whole roster, not necessarily roster construction, but roster retainment, right? Jamar Chase, the story on that is they made him an offer on an extension, but they're very far away from agreeing. So that's not good. T. Higgins, they couldn't come to an agreement with him. They franchise tagged him. I've heard nothing in the way of coming into an agreement with them. And Trey Hendrickson is supposed to be the odd man out. Like they've been renewing these contracts for like 2 years now. Trey Hendrickson's the guy that can't get paid. If other teams are willing to pay Hendrickson what he wants, then the problem is the Bengals. So it is what it is. And I think what the Bengals are trying to do is one of two things. They're either trying to get a team like the Commanders to panic because all these other edges are coming off the board, Josh Sweat and these guys, Azeez Ojulari, one of the better edges still available, at least as far as last time I checked. News breaking out every minute. Certainly not a Trey Hendrickson level edge defender, right? Deatrich Wise Jr., not a Trey Hendrickson level guy. So they're hoping that a team like the Commanders or somebody else is gonna panic and then say, okay, we'll give you your 3 number ones, whatever they're asking for. I don't know what they're asking for. And I don't see Adam Peters doing that. I certainly hope Adam Peters doesn't do that and buckle under that pressure. Or they're basically going to tell Trey Hendrickson, like, hey, dude, yeah, like we're willing to trade you to the Commanders, but they got to give us what we want in a trade. They're not willing to do that. It's their fault, not ours. And it's just, like I said, it just smells a whole lot like the Bengals are operating in bad faith here, dealing with their player, dealing with other NFL teams. I don't like it. It's not prudent. It shouldn't be happening, but it is what it is. The Washington Commanders, however, if you are a Commanders fan and you're still waiting for that big-time edge move to come, I know you messed down on Josh Sweat and some other guys, but don't worry. It could potentially happen. I know the Commanders lost out on DeMarcus Lawrence as well, potentially waiting for this whole thing to come together. If you want a little funny thing from DeMarcus Lawrence, look it up if you haven't seen it already. He did an interview with a Seahawks blogger, I believe, or podcaster, can't remember which. And he had a pretty good line about what's not going to happen in Dallas, that he's hoping is going to happen in Seattle, but ain't going to happen in Seattle either. What is going to happen in Washington is they're going to welcome new safety Will Harris, and they're welcoming back quarterback Marcus Mariota, both of whom met with us, the media here in DC, on Thursday. We'll talk about what they talked about, my favorite quotes from each of them, and continue as we continue this episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you in part by FanDuel. March is here, which means March Madness is here, and FanDuel is going to give you the chance to get in on the action like never before, because right now new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who is going to cut down the nets. Let's look at some current odds on FanDuel right now. The Duke Blue Devils men's team plus 330 favorites to win the men's college basketball championship in 2025. Auburn coming in second with plus 380 odds, while Florida comes in third with plus 750 odds. In the NCAA women's bracket, UConn is plus 290 favorites. South Carolina tied with UConn at plus 290. UCLA third at plus 550. With tournament games happening almost every day, there's always something exciting to bet on. The FanDuel app is simple to use, and when I win, I get paid instantly. No waiting around. So visit FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. Continuing on with today's episode of Locked On Commanders. Thank you for coming through for this live episode of Locked On Commanders here as we wrap up our week of coverage. Do still plan on having some things coming for you over the weekend, some interview footage and videos, things like that. I've got a short up on the YouTube page where Chick Hernandez of WSA 9 asked Will Harris a really good question, or not Will Harris, Marcus Mariota, a really good question. We're actually going to talk about here in a second the answer to that question. So lots of things still potentially coming down the pike. So definitely make sure you're tuned in for all that stuff. So Will Harris, new Washington Commanders safety, call him defensive back, right? I don't want to pigeonhole him too early. Met with the media, as did returning quarterback Marcus Mariota. And I got to tell you guys, look, I know quarterback's super important. Backup quarterbacks are definitely important if you have a quarterback that runs as much as Jaden Daniels does, because knock on wood, hopefully you don't, but you never know when you might need him. But I'll tell you right now, but just in the course of 2024, Marcus Mariota very rapidly became one of my favorite people just in the locker room, right? Just talking to the dude, sometimes on the record, sometimes off the record, not that he's like giving me state secrets or anything, but just not a conversation that needs to be on the record, right? Marcus Mariota, just very solid guy. Just thoroughly enjoyed getting to know him in 2024. So I'm super pumped that he's coming back for 2025. In fact, when that news broke, when I got that text to my phone, I was actually in the gym, and I'm going to tell you right now, it's a good thing I wasn't in certain gyms, because if I was in certain gyms when I got that text, I had been kicked out because I had a little bit of an exclamation going on. So speaking of Marcus, Chick Hernandez, WSA 9, got the first question with Marcus on Thursday in the Zoom press conference and asked him, with everything going on, basically what inspired you to come back to Washington. Marcus said, quote, "The grass isn't always greener, and being around this league for a long time, you understand that when you have a good thing and you have a great culture and you have a great room, that's not everywhere. At the end of the day, something was going to have to really knock my socks off to leave this place. And I'm very happy and very blessed to be back, and I'm excited to make another run with this team," end quote. So I think it's really just an example of really how special what is happening in Washington is from an internal standpoint, right? And again, none of it necessarily guarantees Super Bowls or anything like that. You certainly hope it results in one, right? Or at least one. But you're talking about a quarterback who understands that he's in the later stages of his career, but the opportunities to go out there and get a starting opportunity are dwindling, and this was kind of one where he had a few performances for the Commanders during the season, really showed up for them, showed a lot of good things. He himself, I actually asked him, like, hey, later this late stage in your career, what are you hoping to get from yourself individually? Obviously the team is in lockstep, but like as an individual, what are you hoping for? And he said that he just wants to continue getting better. Feels like he took a big step last year. And I think that was a really kind of very self-aware thing to say, because truthfully, look, I covered the Tampa Bay Buccaneers when they drafted Jameis Winston over Marcus Mariota in 2015. Marcus goes to the Tennessee Titans. Obviously, the two are connected, so you kind of kept one eye on Marcus while he was in Tennessee. Certainly looked to be on an upward trajectory at a point, kind of flattened off and then dipped. Eventually gets, sent out of Tennessee, goes around the league, right? Plays for the Raiders, the Falcons. The Falcons thing kind of didn't end well, right? There was the whole, leaving the team and all that stuff, and he got a bad rap for that. And, just has this kind of journey through his career that isn't all that, savory, I would say. So then to come in 2024 with the Washington Commanders, coming off the Eagles roster, helping Jaden the way that he helped them, helping Mikey Sainristil. I mean, that is something that I don't think got enough pub, right? Like the whole number situation switch where Mikey Sainristil wanted Marcus Mariota's number 0. And Marcus said, okay, I'll give it to you on one condition. That condition is you pick a charity. We both donate to your charity. Like, usually the player giving up the number is the one getting something. In this case, not only did he give Mikey his number, but he gave him a platform and started helping him because he knows that Mikey is the type of guy that wants to have an influence outside of football. He wants to have an influence wider than just the football field. So he helps this young cornerback do that. Like, he's just a good dude, man. So to see him come back, because he admitted as well that his ego said, I have to go out there and see what's available. I have to see him go out there and have these conversations with these other teams. But he turned down these opportunities with other teams to say, hey, look, come in here. You know what I mean? We're probably going to draft a dude, but if he's not ready, you'll play, type of thing. Versus come back to Washington where, hey, dude, we hope you never get to play, right? Like, let's be honest. Like, count all the Commanders fans out there right now. Raise your hand if you ever want to see Marcus Mariota playing meaningful regular season football. 0. None. But Marcus Mariota came back. It's because of the environment. He said, quote, when I took a step back and thought about it, reflected, it was so important for me to be a part of this and to just enjoy my journey. I think there's been so many times in my career, there's been a lot of ups, there's been a lot of downs, and I just wanted to enjoy coming into work. And what head coach Dan Quinn has built here is probably the best environment that I've ever been a part of. And for me, that's hard to leave, end quote. I mean, and again, it's just his family lives in Vegas, guys. Like, I don't know if everybody's aware of that. His family lives in Las Vegas. His home is Hawaii. Like, where he's from, right? Is Hawaii. He's in Washington. He's in Ashburn, Virginia. You couldn't get any further away without playing for a franchise in London, which there isn't right now. So yeah, man. So I just thought it was impactful. You know what I mean? So sorry for me getting a little sentimental there for a second. Maybe it's not super interesting, but I thought it was interesting. New safety Will Harris came through, and here we'll pick up a little bit of energy. Will Harris told us he's excited to join the Commanders to contribute to the team's energy and culture. Said he could feel the energy, could feel the culture when the Saints played the Washington Commanders in 2024. Passion, energy, those were the recurring themes of the conversation with Will Harris. Wants to bring his own high energy style. There's that word again. If you remember, Ross Jackson of Locked On Saints talked about leadership, but also talked about energy from Will Harris, right? Will Harris said, quote, you can't fake juice. You can't fake enthusiasm, and you can't fake love. And so you see all those things when you look at this team, and that's evident whether you're playing against them or you're seeing them on TV. That's evident in the way that we do things here, end quote. So, yeah, a lot of energy coming out of him. Very excited to reconnect with Marshawn Lattimore, former teammate in New Orleans with him last season, calls him the ultimate competitor and says that a guy like Marshawn makes the safety's job easier when a guy like that is on the field. Also says there are ballers all over this roster. So definitely a guy who's excited to be a part of this group. Says trust is a big part of playing DB within the unit, that he and Lattimore were able to build that trust pretty quickly in New Orleans. Obviously, ultimately they end up apart, but now they're back together, and he appreciates you. Commanders fan says that ever since the news broke, he's been getting a ton of love from Commanders fans, and he highly, highly appreciates it. I'll tell you who else highly appreciates it. About 8 to 10 Commanders who are back for 2025. We'll go through that list and what all of it means coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode of Locked On Commanders is brought to you in part by Monarch Money. Do you ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. Well, that's where Monarch Money comes in, because Monarch Money is your personal CFO, Chief Financial Officer, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and you start building wealth. And I'll tell you, I got my hands on this app about a week ago now, uploaded all my bank information into it, uploaded all my investment information into it, started tracking my expenses, where we've got the NFL league meetings at the end of the month in West Palm Beach, Florida. So I need to make sure I've got enough money put aside to finance that trip and do all those things. And man, this thing, when it says it is a complete financial command center, I'm telling you guys, it is not a joke. You have all-in-one convenience in the palm of your hand with the app or on the desktop. Both of them are easy to use. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com to get 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. Wrapping up this live episode of Locked On Commanders. If you're here live with me on YouTube, I appreciate you. Of course, I appreciate everybody watching or listening, even if it's not during the live broadcast. But if you're live, go ahead and drop your comments, any questions you might have in the live comment section. We will get to as many of them as we can before we have to get out of here tonight. Some other agreements that the Washington Commanders came to, several Commanders coming back. Wide receiver Noah Brown. If you're an everydayer, you already know, man, I've been wanting to see Noah Brown's name come across that report every single day since the offseason started. Really happy to see that he's coming back. Noah Brown, you suffered that kidney injury, right? And something that really stood out to me about him, never left the building throughout the entire season. Didn't go home. A lot of guys get injured. They get put on IR. Their season's over. They go home. You know what I mean? And look, I don't want to blame the guys who do that. Noah Brown, not one of those guys. He was around. He was in the locker room. We didn't do anything on the record until the end of the season, if memory serves correct. But we talked to him, you know what I mean, throughout the course of the rest of the season, into the playoffs, all those things. It was very clear that he's a guy who fits in the locker room, fits with the organization, and the organization liked him and appreciated him as well. So very happy to see Noah Brown coming back. How does he fit in the depth chart right now? You know, I'd say Terry McLaurin. Honestly, like Noah Brown, Deebo Samuel, like I don't even know if I'd put a number 2 or number 3 on there. It's just they're going to have their roles. You know what I'm saying? They're going to play a lot of snaps. They're going to do a lot of things in the 2025 NFL season, and hopefully Noah Brown can have a more healthy season, a healthier season than he's had in a little while. Trent Scott, offensive lineman, also coming back. Great for the Washington Commanders because he stepped up, man. He was a guy that not a lot of people, myself included, had a lot of expectations for entering 2024, but we all got to say, man, we got to admit, Trent did his thing, man. He stepped up when they needed him to, including being the recipient of Jaden Daniels' first career touchdown pass. So you got to bring him back, right? You got to bring back the trivia answer, right? Trent Scott. That's his nickname now. Not coming back. Well, coming back, but not re-signing because he's already under contract. Andrew Wiley, offensive lineman, restructured his deal, had no guarantees left on his contract entering 2025. So he agreed to a restructure to get some guarantees put in place. And the rest of his money will now go towards incentives. It's not going to be base salary per game, all that stuff. He's got incentives now. So if he hits all of his incentives, he'll earn all the money that he was potentially going to earn. However, now he's got some guarantees, and that's obviously what every player wants, is a little bit of security. Andrew Wiley, guy who certainly, look, I think right now my expectation is obviously Laramie Tunsil left tackle. That trade should be finalized either Friday or Saturday. And then my expectation right now is Brandon Coleman is going to get first run at right tackle. So Andrew Wiley, now you become the primary candidate to become the right guard while Sam Cosmi is still on the mend. And then once Sam Cosmi is healthy, you and Trent Scott basically hold down the second level of the defensive line or offensive line. Noah Igbinoghene, slot corner, just cornerback. He's also coming back on a deal. Look, Jonathan Jones comes in. He's a slot guy. He's an outside guy, more of an outside guy last year with the Patriots than he was a slot guy. I think you're just looking at versatility. You're looking at flexibility. Noah Igbinoghene has an outside cornerback history as well. So you have a bunch of guys who can do a bunch of things. Mikey Sanders still can play inside and out. Marshawn Lattimore can play inside and out. I think that's just, if you want to find a Washington Commanders cornerback, find a guy who can play inside and out. You know who can play inside and out? Jahdae Barron, Texas, potential first-round pick. I'm not saying of the Washington Commanders. I'm just saying he's a guy who can play inside and out. Nick Bellore, technically a linebacker, but basically you just call him a special team stud. He is also coming back. Sheldon Day, who I just said on yesterday's episode, I was a little bit worried may not be coming back because of the addition of one Javon Kinlaw. He is coming back. Love that. Michael Dieter also coming back. A little bit of a surprise there. When Sam Cosmi went down, Michael Dieter wasn't the guy that went in. It was Trent Scott. Also, after Tyler Biadish's first game missed, Michael Dieter called the offensive line protections. Did not go well. The next time Tyler Biadasz missed action, Nick Allegretti called the protections, went a little bit better. So a little surprised that Michael Dieter's back, but don't hate it. KJ Osborne also coming back. A little bit surprised that he is coming back as well. So that is, again, as far as at 8:30 p.m., and I really hope I got them all because, man, we've been busy here on Thursday. But that's the latest and greatest with the Washington Commanders. We do have a little bit of time, so let's hit the live chat here on YouTube. Archie's coming back through. Appreciate you. Talking about the elephant end. Yeah, man, look, big lines can help. Big sets, big dudes. You just want guys who can eat space and then let guys like Bobby Wagner, Frankie Louvu, JT Tuimoloau, perhaps, maybe. Let's manifest it. Could absolutely help stop the run game. You have a safety like Will Harris who's going to crash down as well. Could certainly help, create the opportunity to be a better defense against the run. Ross Garcia asked, did Dante Fowler sign elsewhere or is he still fighting for his money? As of 8:30 p.m., Dante Fowler Jr. is still a free agent. Was also asked if Dante's tweets hurt him or helped him. I would say they hurt him because this is a very team-oriented organization, and Dante's comments were very about himself, very much inside of his own feelings. Look, we're all human beings, right? I'm not going to say that, they shouldn't re-sign him for it, but that's going to be something he's got to reckon with Dan Quinn, Daryl Tapp, Ryan Kerrigan, his pass rush specials, all those guys. I'll leave that to them. The Poster King says for the Bengals, let's have the Washington Commanders give up number 29. You get and the Commanders get back Trey Hendrickson, their third and their fifth. Yeah, I'd do that. I mean, I'd be okay with that. D for the win wants to keep the money. Okay, I don't mind that at all. Michael says he feels like a Higgins trade is probably coming. Maybe New England. Look, New England would try to go after Chris Godwin. New England asked the Eagles if they trade A.J. Brown. Like if the New England Patriots haven't asked the Bengals about trading T. Higgins, I would be shocked. Whether the Bengals actually do it or not, I mean, they might as well, right? They can't come to terms on a contract with any of these dudes. Go ahead and trade them and get some draft picks. Who do I think we should get in the first round this year? Listen, I'll tell you right now, mock draft Monday is coming up in just a few days. And all these moves, we're going to reset the depth chart. We're going to restack the needs, and we're going to hit another mock draft on Monday. And by then, the Laramie Tunsil trade should be finalized, which means all those pick swaps will be finalized as well. So make sure you come back for mock draft Monday. We'll do all of that. How I feel about the state of linebacker group overall, pretty much how I felt about it last year, right? Jordan McGee is a solid dude. Need to see him stay healthy. Dominique Hampton is a work in progress. Michael Walker is no longer here. Bobby Wagner is a stud. I think you absolutely should target a linebacker in the draft. Again, the board, how that falls is all going to have to be how it considers. Could I see Cooper Kupp, Keenan Allen, or Stephon Diggs signing with the Washington Commanders? Yeah, look, every day these guys go by without a contract, they get cheaper, right? And that's just kind of the bottom line of it. So certainly would not be verse. Stephon Diggs is a little bit iffy just because of his prior reputation, but the same thing about his reputation is like it's also proven by his teammates. Like Josh Allen used to be his best friend in Buffalo. By the end of it, they weren't even talking, right? Like that's a pretty bad sign for Stephon Diggs. But Cooper Kupp, team dude. Keenan Allen, team dude. Wouldn't hate either of those guys if the team thinks going to fit. Absolutely do it. I do think there's going to be a very healthy rotation on the defensive line, like the Eagles do, like some other teams do as well. Higgins out of Iowa State, Poster King. We have had him in some mock drafts. Look, we're going to do so many mock drafts here this year, guys. Here's the thing I promise you, okay? When April comes along and somebody gets drafted that was inevitably in one of our mock drafts or we talked about in one of our mock drafts, I'm not going to be the guy sitting here calling myself a hero, being like, hey, one of my 40 mock drafts, we mock draft that guy, but we did have Higgins in one of our mock drafts, so I like him a lot as well. I do think they might still go running back in the NFL draft, and a game changer at edge. Yeah. I mean, listen, passers, right? Jaden Daniels, you got your passer. Pass protectors, Laramie Tunsil, you got that dude. Pass catchers, playmakers, Terry McLaurin, Deebo Samuel, you got those guys. Noah Brown's coming back. Zach Ertz is on the roster. Now, pass rushers, that's where you're lacking. Pass defenders, look, not the best in the league, right? But look, I mean, Marshawn Lattimore, Mikey Sanders still, Noah Igbinoghene / Jonathan Jones, Quan Martin, Will Harris. I mean, that's a good group, guys, right? And you still have the draft and things like that. So pass defenders, the only thing this team is missing, I mean, really in the grand structure of how do you build the most complete teams in the National Football League, pass rush. And you need that pass rush. Run defense obviously needs to get better. But that pass rush, man, they got to go find that pass rusher, even if it's not Trey Hendrickson. They got to find somebody. So that is going to wrap it up for today's episode. That's going to wrap it up here for the week. Like I said, I've got some bonus content potentially coming your way. I'm going to see if I can work it in to my schedule. We've got a lot of press conferences coming. I think that tomorrow we're expecting like 5 press conferences just on Friday, and then 2 or 3 more on Saturday, probably a little bit more on Sunday. So keep an eye out for all these things. Insiders, you're going to be getting text messages from me like you have been all day long, all week long. So make sure you got your phones handy. If you go to bed early, maybe silence the notification so I don't wake you up. In the meantime, if you got questions or comments, or you want to get that information from me directly like the insiders do, become an insider. Go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnCommanders today. I want to thank you for making this show your first listen of the day every day. For your next one, check out the Locked On NFL Draft podcast with Damian Parson and Keith Sanchez. Every dayers, special thank you to you once again for coming through every single day. And for everybody out there, if you're out and about, especially this weekend, please be safe, be kind to one another, and I'll see you right back here next time for another episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.